Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish, where you learn how to use your entrepreneurial and book skills to really jet propel yourself to a 6 or 7 income figure. My guest today is really different from anyone we've had in the past, and I'm very excited about it. But before we get to her, I want to remind you guys to go over and follow us on YouTube at Superbrand Publishing. We are trying to get up to that magic 1,000 follower figure, and we're doing it very slowly, so please go over and help us. And don't forget to go over and take our Promote, Profit, Publish quiz and find out where your skill set lies when you're ready to publish that book. Are you ready? Have you laid your groundwork? Have you connected it to the entrepreneurial things that you really want to sell? Because remember, we never make a ton of money from our books. It's all those other products and services that are helpful. So today's guest is Dana Pharant, and Dana is the inner dominatrix. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Having built a 7-figure business without sales calls and as a former dominatrix, I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Dana knows all about owning her power and being unique. She has worked with clients for over 25 years, helping them step into the energy of their inner dominatrix. And she's written 5 books. And I think you have another one that's about ready to come out. Is that right?
We just released The Badass Intuition. So that's the book number 5. Yeah.
Okay. Book number 5. And she's won multiple awards and treats her own personal development like an extreme sport. Who doesn't? Welcome, Dana.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Yeah. So it's dominatrix. It's very close.
Dominatrix.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just had a bit of an accent on it. You know, if you put a little French flair on it, dominatrix.
There you go. You say tomato, I say tomato.
Right. We can all agree.
There you go. So the reason I had you on today is because you have chosen a niche and just owned it. And a while back, I was on one of the Dames calls, and there was a group of ladies there who had a niche that was catering accounting for the priesthood, not the priesthood, what's it called? Priests, preachers, you know, the whole religious community. And I never knew there was a niche there. And when you think about that, when you grab a really great niche, you can own it. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are. Or show us. Do you have some stuff to show us?
No, I didn't put on my corset for this show. That's a bit of a piece to get into. So I like you, but not that much.
Okay.
Okay. So the story kind of have to go back, and I grew up in a cult. So that's the first piece of it, which is also quite, striking for a lot of people. But in leaving that, I went on this really long journey to find healing. And of course, there was abuse that happened in the cult as well. And so I was on this journey to figure out, how do I get this out of my body? How do I break free from it? It was just always this drive. And at the same time, I came across the kink world. So that's the slang for the BDSM. I think 50 Shades of Grey, if people still don't know what we're talking about. And I ended up experiencing the most profound healing through that. And it's completely mind-blowing for people. I mean, you think you've been through abuse, and so you're going to go somewhere where people are going to beat on you? Like, does that make sense? But the reality is that the scenes are all loosely scripted, and you plan out what's going to happen, and you also plan out the outcome. So we were able to reenact the abuse and create a different outcome with that container, having that safe space to explore. And in that, that's when I discovered I actually had been depressed for 20 years. Nobody had labeled it. Nobody had found it. But because of these sessions and finally coming out and going, wow, look at that gray drizzly sky. That's so pretty. And at the same time, in the back of my mind, I'm going, I've never had that thought before. So I realized that I had been depressed all this time. And this is what led me to want to actually take other people on this same journey. So that's what got me into becoming a dominatrix and learning all of those skills and actually becoming, like, you have to change. You have to lean into it. You can't fake it. This is not something it's like, oh, I'm just going to pick up a whip and we're just going to like pretend. No, no, right? It doesn't really work that way. You have to be all in, which required me to change. And eventually, we have company.
I know.
Eventually, cats, they have no sense of boundaries. So eventually I realized that wasn't the long-term plan, but I realized that who I became as a dominatrix was really, really vital for women in business. And it's that energy of standing in your power, of really owning who you are and your expertise and how you show up in the world, that moves people from a business that pays you to the business ownership level, where you are earning money whether you work in the business or not. So it's that difference, and that's what really developed this inner dominatrix platform that I launch off of now. So this whole brand of authentic empowerment through the inner dominatrix.
Oh, that's so awesome. And for all of you out there right now that are kind of going, did I read 50 Shades of Grey? I know you did. I actually have a funny story. I was at my daughter's soccer game. She was playing Premier Soccer, and I was listening on Audible, but I could also hear that the clapping was off in the game. And I looked down the row, and all of the moms had their Kindles out. And I was like, what are y'all reading? Because they weren't clapping, and they were all reading that book and not paying attention to the game. So I know you secret people out there know what she's talking about.
It
So
was a runaway. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, very definitely. Because we all wanted that guy. He sounded so hot. So tell us, how did you translate that from that inner healing journey into the business that you have today, where you are a 7-figure entrepreneur leading the way for other women to experience this?
Yeah, so it's this piece around the energy of it. So who you have to become. So it's the changing things so that women can find the sense of confidence, that learning to trust themselves, which translates into being open and detached from the outcome, which helps to create trust with others. The piece of being willing to be visible, to be willing to be seen, having all of that is a big factor. And so communicating that to people, that's what women are hungry for. Like, I work with a lot of very successful women who they don't see themselves as successful. They're like, but I'm not here. But I didn't, I made 500,000 last year, but I didn't make 1,000,000, or I made 1,000,000, but I didn't make 5. There's this constant pull. And so for me, it is, getting in touch with those people, having that language, getting in touch with them and showing them what can change when we change the internal landscape. So that's been my route to success, is working really a lot one-on-one with people, but having some group programs as well, and creating that platform for people to step into, because there's a huge need for women to step into their power, but in a different way than what most people are putting out.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. And I know this is probably going to be a little bit controversial, but women are always talking about, they're impressed. They're out there protesting that they don't have rights. And by the same token, they're not owning their own power. They're blaming it on others. That's my perception of what's
Mm-hmm.
going out on the world. And I think when you look at the corporate world, and there are a lot of women who will say, well, a man calls me a bitch if I exert my power, they're really exerting it in the wrong way.
Yeah.
I feel like. So there's a lot of that out in the corporate world, where women don't understand the power grid in the way they should.
There's so many layers in here. And it's a really great point, because, the dynamic for centuries has been that we as women need men in order to be safe, to be taken care of, right? Women weren't earning. So we relied on catching a good mate in order to be sustained in a lifestyle that we wanted. That's the reality of it. And it's really only been the last 100 years that this has changed. So we have generations of this kind of imprinting, where we as women have used our sexual prowess to attract the right mate. And
Mhm.
so what I see a lot in corporate world is that women come into corporate world, they haven't been mentored. There's no, lifting from above. There's no, hey, let me take you under my wing and I'll show you what you need to be doing. And so we're guessing. And then we have this imprint where we come along and we're in a mixed company. And what happens is that we bring a little bit of that sexual energy and it's confused. And then we try to step into our power. And because we're not really owning it, we're get assertive and aggressive as
Mhm.
opposed to the quiet feminine power. That's the big difference. See, for me, the dominatrix doesn't necessarily have to say or do anything to command attention. She walks into a room completely silent and heads turn because of who she is and how she shows up. And that's what really I see where women, in whether it's corporate or business, women need to start to learn how to hold their power in a way that is both feminine and strong. And so you can't do what men are doing. That doesn't work. But there are ways that we can stand in that room, hold our power, and people respect us.
Mhm.
But it does take a little bit of shifting of the old programming, the old dynamics. And eventually we get to this place where it is that piece of we walk in and people are like, damn, who's that? And that's what's
Right.
going on.
So talk about that a little bit, because in order to sell anything when you're a business owner, you need to be able to establish trust. And
Mm-hmm.
that same thing you just said about trusting your confidence when you walk into the room, trusting your power, that's all intermixed in there when you create an offer and you
Absolutely.
put that offer together and present it. If you don't sound confident, the person on the other side gets that. So
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit. How do you build that trust?
And I think there's, the layers of what I teach. So the badass intuition, I would suggest everybody go and grab a copy of that. So you can get over to innerdominatrix.com and you can get a PDF copy for free, or you can go to Amazon and you can buy a copy. Support me. Yay.
Right. Don't give them the free one. No, that's not empowering. No.
Got a choice. You only got a choice. It's not as fun to read on a PDF, right?
Right.
So, but the first thing I always get people to do is start to get in touch with your intuition. So as women, we have an innate ability to connect with our intuition on a deeper level. And we need to, this is my personal opinion and what I've seen with all of my clients, when we function from our intuition, we're more effective. We spend less time doing things like making decisions, figuring out what's the best route. Do I do this publishing, that publishing, this book, that book,
Hmm.
all of those things that cause us to go into our space of doubting ourselves changes. So that's the very core piece, is really getting that intuition piece locked down. That's going to start to build the confidence in yourself. Now, when you start trusting your knowing, now we can ramp it up and we can say, okay, um, getting to this place of being detached from the outcome. So when we are doing sales, it needs to be an offer of, hey, I see that I can really help you in this, but also being completely detached from whether they actually buy or not. Because the moment that you're detached, you start pulling people in as opposed to pushing them away, right?
Hmm.
If I'm at this place where it's like, Julia, I have so many clients, I'm not sure I can fit you in, but if you want to book a consultation, go ahead. We'll talk about it. We'll see if I can fit you in. As opposed to, oh, can I put you in for a consult next week? Right? That's a kind of extreme, but there's a difference, right? It's getting to that place where we pull people in magnetically as opposed to hunting them.
Yes.
And I think that's the other big switch, especially for women. We are gatherers by nature. We are gatherers. So we need to pull people in, not go out and do the hunt and kill.
I agree. So I'm going to say something, because when you were doing that, I was thinking of the women I know as well who do that same thing with men. So I think once you get it, it applies to a lot of spaces in your
Oh,
world.
absolutely. Dating world. This is like so true, right? A woman walks into a bar and you can tell whether she's on the hunt for a mate by the reaction of the men. They all like,
Yeah.
they're gone. They're gone because they can sense that clingy desperation. And our
Yeah.
potential clients sense that clingy desperation. And we are kind of hardwired to have this idea that I only want to work with people who are busy, who are in demand because they're going to be better. And so if you're desperate, then you might not be good.
Oh, that's
Right?
very true. So it's really about valuing yourself as well, which how many entrepreneurs do we know that don't value their skill, their pricing?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. I have no idea what to charge, or that doesn't feel good asking for that kind of money.
Yeah,
You have to get good at, valuing that inside of yourself. So it's
absolutely.
trusting yourself and then having other people trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this spills out into so many things. Like I have client that I just worked with recently. She was, I ended up saving her $25,000 because she was seriously considering signing up for this sales coaching program. And I sat down and we were in our session. I was like, okay, well, what are you going to get out of that? And made her really look at the fact that she already has all of those skills,
Mhm.
but she was looking for something outside to validate her skills instead of her owning it. So, I did one session with her, changed that perspective, saved her $25,000. That's a pretty
Mhm.
good return on investment on one session.
It is. And you know what? For the people who are coaches, that is so invaluable because they buy so many shiny
Oh,
object. This
all
is going to make me the next big thing. They don't think about that long-term sustainability of a business. It's, there's too much instant gratification, 6 figures in 6 months. And, that's not how you run a business.
it's
There's
not.
ups and there's downs, and it's never 6 figures in 6 months right off the bat.
Yeah.
Sort of a pipe dream. So, we get a lot of that shininess too. So you have to trust yourself to know that, you don't need that shininess. You need people who are truth tellers, which I'll even share. I was in a coaching program back in 2016. I may have shared this with you when we did our pre-interview. And the woman was trying to make me into her. That
Mm,
we were doing the webinar, and she had these hands extended, I'm going to give you a gift, and the very first one I did flopped, and I gave it to a friend of mine to look at, who was a sales and marketing expert, because with I am too, but when I look at my own stuff, I just like I don't
oh,
see it.
we
We
can't
all
see
do
the
that.
label from inside the jar. It's
Yeah,
that piece. It's so much.
exactly. We're all like that. So he took one look at that recorded webinar and he was like, who was that? like you are a truth teller. You just tell it like it is. And that whole here's your gift is not you. And so I bounced along with that program for about another 3 months. And then I quit. I just said, you know what? I'm not you. And we rebranded me as the pretty much the truth teller business coach and business and marketing coach. And everything took off because it wasn't authentic. So
Yeah,
you have to be able to trust that piece of you. If it doesn't feel good with what the marketing is, if it doesn't feel good for you, it's not going to feel good for other people.
that's it. Like you have to be lit up about what you're doing, what you're talking about. And I've always said to people is that you don't have to be a perfect speaker. You don't have to have the perfect words because
Mhm.
the majority of what we communicate is the nonverbal. It is who you are, how you show up, who you be that communicates to people. The other pieces, like the words, I think are only like 7%. And then, your body gestures are something like
Mhm.
13%. So it's very, very small. But when you are aligned, when you're really connected with this is who I am, this is my purpose. And for me, it's the dominatrix piece that if I stay with that, that's authentic. I can talk into that.
Mhm. I
Very
know.
sorry about that. But that is what is magnetic and compelling for people. We don't have to be perfect, but we do have to be authentic.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very true. I've had a lot of mentors when speaking mentors who, I'll use my slide deck, and my slide deck is sort of there it is, the bullet points. You can take a picture of it, but I talk and take questions and everything right in the middle, just because that's natural for me.
Yeah.
So it's a cue to get me back to where I was supposed to be before I got off on my little rant.
Same here. I
So that,
love it.
but that's another piece of authenticity though. So many of us go out with this practice canned, marketing and speech and, I'm going to take this on the road, and it doesn't feel really good. One of my clients, Merrill Chandler, is just so natural at what he does that people gravitate towards workshops. And it's because it's that same thing. It's because he's just goofy as hell. Sorry, Merrill, but it serves him.
Well, that's it, right? You need to bring your quirks. You need to bring what is that little piece that makes you memorable, that makes you stand out, and you lean into that. And this is where, doing that, I'm very, inclined for the inner work. But when we get over the pieces that say, oh, don't do that, don't lean into that, then we show up fully. We really, say, okay, these are my quirks. I'm going to show up with this quirk. I've met people with pink hair and they've embraced it and they're working in corporate, and it works because it's them. When we embrace those pieces and allow ourselves to not be wrong, make ourselves wrong, then we can lean into all the power of marketing, because we need to be unique. We need to stand out. And this also this piece, like we were talking earlier about the trust piece, that if we show up really authentic, quirks and all, people are like, oh, I feel like I can trust you. It feels like you're being honest with me. I don't feel like you're hiding anything from me.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true, especially in a sales situation. That's why I know you haven't looked at our quizzes, but that's why I love the quizzes, because I have a lot of information in front of me. And so I can get down to them. What is it about them? Why isn't this working? So it's a really great tool. So where can we find you? We already know about your book.
Yes. So I have the great distinction, along with the inner dominatrix piece keeping me unique. My name, I'm the only one in the world. So Dana Pharant, which is spelled Pharant. You're welcome to look me up on LinkedIn, connect with me there. And the website is danapharant.com. So definitely hook me up if you are ready to step in your power. I am ready to have a conversation.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been really great.
My pleasure.